Good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. Welcome to After the Bell, a Stunt Brothers production. I'm Martin Stubel.
And I'm Roy Hunt, and we share your pain, having taught a combined 70 years.
70 years?
I know, wow. So get out your marking, organize your supplies, or just pour yourself a coffee.
I think I need something stronger.
That's okay.
Okay.
And listen, engage, and interact with After the Bell, a podcast for you, the hardworking, dedicated teacher who wants free lesson plans, free advice, and a free meal.
Oh, I always show up for a free meal. So that's what I want you to do. I was being compassionate, man. I just wanted you to know what you were going to do for this segment.
That's not compassion.
Yeah, it's a little.
You're like, that's what I want you to do. I feel very, very comfortable now knowing that that's what I want you to do.
That's my compassion.
That's your compassion.
That's my care for my
right.
buddy.
What I hate to think about how you talk to yourself. That's what I want you to do.
We're on, listeners. Here we are. We have another video episode for those that are watching on video. And then, of course, we have our usual podcast streaming on all the places that you catch After the Bell. And this is episode 54.
Wow.
54. Season
2.
Oh.
24. Yeah.
10 points for
Yes!
Well
Woo!
done. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So we're humming along here. And you're humming along. You've been working more lately.
I got called in a lot this week. And one of the things I was called in and to a grade 4 or 5 class.
Okay.
And then today is our podcasting day. So I treat our podcasting day like a job.
Yeah, it is a job.
It is a job, right?
We have 16,000 views of one of our TikTok videos.
I know.
16. It's gone minor viral, semi-viral.
Semi-viral, minor viral.
But it's doing well, and we're doing well. And
yes.
So this is our job on Wednesday.
I know. Well, and it's great.
And almost every other day, it seems, right? It's taken over our lives.
Yes, it has. But anyways, being in the school, and because I was coming in here for today, I had to make up a day plan.
Oh.
I haven't done one of those in a year and a half ago. I was starting to sweat it out.
Wow.
And I had to do a day plan for the TOC who was coming in today.
Okay, that was kind of you.
And so I was kind of exhausted by the end of that.
It was like probably 5 o'clock and you were still there, right?
I know, and they don't give overtime.
No. They used to, didn't they?
No, I don't think they ever did.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Huh. Well.
And
well done. You were exhausted. So.
Yeah, I was exhausted. Did all the photocopying, got everything organized. And so the teacher who walked into the classroom this morning was going like, "Oh, wow, thank you, Mr. Hunt."
So you walked out of there exhausted. Did you have time for yourself? A little self-care, a little compassion for Roy Hunt rather than thinking about the next day for the class?
Well, I was initially no.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed a drink more than I needed anything else.
It's not always the best way to to self-care.
But
for sure.
I did get home and I did a little bit of exercise. I have an exercise routine that I do. And so I did that, and I felt very relaxed from that point. So the exhaustion went away. And I did think about, in a sense, maybe saying to myself, "Oh, that was a really nice thing you did for that person. How do you?" And then I said, "You're a nice person." So that was kind of that self-care or that self-compassion. I'm like,
good enough.
I'm feeling good. I am good enough. Yes.
Well, you'll be happy to know I got a little self-care for you today because we don't have to come up with the whole episode ourselves today.
Oh.
We have another field trip. We've had lots lately, and we're going on another field trip.
All right.
We're
I
going
love
to
that.
have an author.
That's right.
Who we're going to have? Tell us.
We are going to have Lisa Baylis today.
Nice.
And Lisa Baylis is the author of Self-Compassion for Educators. So this is something that I'm really interested in. And I know we both have read her book.
Yeah, and it's part of what we try to do in this podcast. So to have Lisa on is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
And a lot of you listening to this will hopefully hear this on the Monday.
Yes.
And on the Friday, you're actually having a professional development conference with Lisa as the keynote speaker and to talk about her book and to do workshops. And many of you in North Vancouver particularly have done a book club.
Yes.
Where you've looked at her book and dived into it deeply. So this, I think, will complement that. So let's go on that field trip.
Yes. Can't wait.
So here we are. Yeah.
Yes. Today we're talking with Lisa Baylis, educator, counselor, and author of Self-Compassion for Educators. Lisa has spent years helping teachers bring more calm, mindfulness, and kindness into their busy lives. And her work is all about making well-being feel doable, not overwhelming. We're going to talk about what self-compassion really looks like in a school setting, why it's so hard for educators to give themselves the same care they give others, and the small practices that we can make that make a big difference.
Yeah.
Lisa, I'm so happy that you're here with us, and we have this opportunity. So welcome.
Welcome to After the Bell. We really appreciate it. We're very excited about this.
I'm really excited to be here on After the Bell and to be with both you, Martin and Roy. Thanks for inviting me. And
you're very welcome.
Let's have fun. Let's have a great conversation.
And that's what it's all about.
And part of the fun, we always start with ABC 1, 2, 3. It's just sort of, do you ever watch Stephen Colbert? He does the questionnaire where he has a guest come on. It's the first thing that pops in your mind. No right or wrong. It just allows us to get to know you a little bit.
Yes, this is our version. Okay.
So ABC 1, 2, 3.
The answer is always coffee.
That's right.
Yes. Well, actually, I was thinking of having one of those for you, and you're like, oh, it's obvious. It's coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. ABC with Roy first.
ABC. A, guided meditation or silent meditation?
Silent meditation for me.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. B, mountain retreat or beach getaway?
Always beach getaway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. C, early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
You're a night owl.
I'm a night owl.
Yeah. I'm more of an.
And that's changed for me in the last few years, where I would have always said I was a night owl. Lately, life has been giving me opportunities to arise early, and man, that feels fantastic.
Yeah. Best part of the day. So 1, 2, 3. So number one, do you have a favorite book as a child that you really think about and you go to in your mind sometimes, or reread even? One that stands out?
Well, The Velveteen Rabbit, when I go really as a child, is one of those, and I still quote it to this day. I do.
Yeah.
Just that, what does it mean to be real, right? That.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a favorite.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Number 2, do you have a favorite teacher from your childhood that you would like to share with us? Someone who stands out.
You know, as an educator, you kind of have to examine this. I remember doing this, and
yes.
Both my parents were teachers. And so I remember having lots of wonderful teachers, but my dad was he worked at my school. He was my coach through most of my sports life. And when I think of who was one of my favorite teachers, it was just his calm and steady presence as an adult and educator in my life that always reminded me of how it means to show up without being edgy or rough or hard, and just still motivate and be kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you, in the book, you say both your parents were teachers, and you kind of shied away from becoming a teacher at first, which I think a lot of children of teachers nowadays especially do that at first, because they know, unlike the general public, they know what the job is like, right?
Yeah, I was there's no way I was going into education. Yeah. It was not what I wanted to do. I watched how hard it was for them. And then I realized this is a calling, this work. And I loved kids, and I loved helping, and I loved supporting. And so, of course, it was an easy decision once I realized that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and number 3, if there's one song that you had to listen to for the rest of your life, and only one song, you're on that deserted island, the sharks are circling, you can't go anywhere else. You don't have to play this song over and over again. It's just when you want to kind of take your mind off the fact you're all alone on this island. Do you have a song?
I mean, this is so tough because I don't know about you. I often used to joke about kitchen dance parties were the way I sort of got through really difficult times. So always had a different playlist for, especially when my children were little. And at the end of a long day, we'd put tunes on and dance and move and sing. And it was part of the healing process and part of making dinner, preparations a lot more fun. So music's always a big part of my life. But if I had to choose one song, one of my most powerful songs for me right now is the song Landslide. I love that song.
Oh, God.
Fleetwood Mac, right?
Yeah.
And the Chicks sing it.
The Chicks version of it is just it's beautiful too.
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe where I'd sit at this point in my life today, is that sort of hits closer to home as I have, teenagers who are getting older and a life that's just changing. Like, man, this is a powerful
The different stages
for me.
are amazing, right? And you can change along with them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, thinking of that journey, right? Before we get into the book, can you kind of give us an idea of the journey that brought you to writing this book, your own journey, becoming a teacher, and then getting into this self-care thought?
Yeah. My first degree was a PE teacher. So I was an athlete. And so it made sense to become, my dad was a PE teacher too.
Yeah,
and so I got a PE degree and never got to teach PE ever. And then I did my math, like many of us who started years
this
ago.
Job, right? There's so many things.
Yes.
Right.
Had to be adaptable and teach everything else. And then I did my master's in counseling. And during that, I learned a lot about mental health. So I always felt like I had a good, strong foundation of what does physical health look like? What does mental health look like? And during that journey, I, always said, and I still wasn't okay often, right? Like even knowing the pieces that I needed to make me well, and the journey around my emotional health was never touched on. And, in around 2014, I was finished my master's, but I had learned more about positive psychology, and it wasn't a part of any of my degrees. And I really did a deep dive into what does positive mental health look like? What does positive emotional health look like? And it's just resonated deeply with me to a point of, like, this makes sense of how I want to show up. I want to look at flourishing. I don't want to look at just getting by in my life. And a lot of the work in this world is, we look at mental health and we go from a negative to like, let's just get you okay. But I wanted to be in a world where I felt like I could flourish in the work. And I had 2 small children at home, and I was questioning it. And like most educators, when you learn something, you want to teach it, right? Like, I want to bring this into the world. And so I started just running some workshops on mental health and well-being, and what does this look like, and how do we bring happiness into our classrooms? And in 2014, like many of us, if you remember the September of 2014, where we had that big old strike and we didn't go back to school, right?
I started in the MBTA office as vice president. So that was where I started the job. And it was like June and then summer and then September. We're still at it. So I know. I totally
so hard, right?
I so know, yeah.
So we walked up picket lines and we went back in. I remember being mandated and walking into my staff room and just being surrounded by educators who were depleted in September, right? Like we started the year feeling undervalued and underappreciated, and September's never, like, September feels good.
You've got to have hope in September.
You got to have a little bit of, your pencils are sharp, your new boots are on, and it didn't feel that way that year. And I remember, and I always say, I wish I knew enough about taking data at that time, because I was seeing so many students as a counselor. And I started to see this correlation between the students that were coming from classrooms of teachers who were really, really struggling. And I just started to notice that, when our teachers are struggling, when our educators are not present, it makes an impact on kids, especially vulnerable kids. And those vulnerable kids were coming in, and I was seeing more of them. And I started to just like, what can I do? And I often say this work started for me more as a parent than as a teacher. I knew it as a teacher, but my kids now, they were going to start kindergarten in 2015. My son was going into school the next year. And I thought, how do I send my babies into a system where our teachers are just not okay? And I want to make sure that, because we raise other people's babies. This is what we do,
That's
right?
what we do. Yeah. We do.
It's how we show up. And I knew that I would be sending my kids to be raised by people who weren't fully present, who were, feeling that they weren't doing a good enough job, or felt like that they just didn't have enough support. And so I just thought, well, this is my job in life, is to see what can I do to start changing the script on well-being in schools. And that's when I started. I started running workshops. I went to anything I could go to. I talked about well-being. And I'll tell you, for the first almost 5 years, I was pushed out of spaces. I was told, we're in the business of kids. We're not in the business of adults. You change your tone to make it about the kids, then we'll talk to you more. Which I just never backed down. I said, I don't think that's right. Like, we have to talk about the adults.
Right? Yeah.
They go together. Yeah. I knew that explicitly from my own experience. I knew that when I was okay as a parent and as an educator, I was able to be present with kids. And it wasn't until COVID that really, I think that brought that to the world's attention. People were willing to start talking about it finally. They started to realize that, well, actually it does matter how our adults are in this space, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the first time I remember hearing that conversation. Actually, you heard that even from parents. Because they had the kids at home, too, for a while. So they started to get it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
One of the positives from that time.
One of the positives from a really difficult time was that we actually started to change the script. And I think that was a really important piece. I'd been talking about it for 5 years before then and just sort of trying to jump on any rooftop I could that says you need to talk about the adults. But during that time, I'd been doing a lot of work in my own district. We'd been teaching mindfulness programs to employees within the district. I knew that the practice of positive psychology had narrowed for me, and I had learned more about the practice of mindfulness for me. I had gone on my own journey about learning about self-compassion because it really, again, resonated as a practice. So the work was happening whether I was being supported or not. And then as COVID hit, I was still working full-time as a counselor. And during that time, I realized that when I showed up when I brought this work to educators, it was resonating so deeply with them that I knew I needed to give it to them in a way that felt really accessible. And what I was also doing at that time was I was reading every well-being book for teachers that I could get my hands on. And I was looking at what was in the world, that everything felt like textbooks. Yeah. So they were thick, they were dense, they were heavy. And I thought, if I'm a burnt-out teacher, if I'm tired, and I went through my own burnout, I don't want to pick up a heavy textbook.
You're not going to do that. No.
I don't have it in me.
No.
So I thought, I want to write something that brings practices to life for people, that feels accessible and easy, and that when they read it, it's something that their hearts go like, I feel like I'm with you on that journey.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I got down to work, and during COVID, I wrote a book that said, here's what resonated for me. This is how it helped me go through my own burnout journey, my own struggle as a new mom with little ones and working full time, and trying to stay in the work and the heaviness that comes with it. And my experience of teaching mindful self-compassion was really helpful, and knowing the practices in the program that came from that. And the other thing that I really appreciated is mindfulness and self-compassion had empirical research behind them. So there was one thing that I could claim, that this wasn't just woo-woo, that there was data that showed that when we actually did this work, it helped us in so many different ways to be able to continue to be in this work without fully get to burnout. So I think that's kind of the journey that got me there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And one of the things I really liked about your book was you had practice pages, and from those practice pages, then you would also do some reflections, so some journaling, and then a call to action. So it wasn't just do this or a direction. There was a series of things that could be done, and anyways, that really resonated with me.
Thanks, Roy. Well, I mean, we're educators, right? We also know that, we don't learn from just reading one thing, and we don't learn from just doing what, the process of learning is reading, understanding, listening, reflecting, going back, sharing, teaching. So what I did is I brought my own educational experience into what's going to help me understand this. Well, I know that when I try something once, I have to try it, and then I have to try it again and reflect on it. And then I usually have to try it again and again. But then what helps me really understand something is to talk about it with someone or to teach it again. And as most of us as educators know, you do one, you see one, you teach one, and this is how we actually make this work not just something that's up here, but it's an embodied experience. And my hope was with the setup in that book was that we move it from just a knowing to a full embodied experience. Yeah.
And I find you talk about how we go to the class and we give so much, and it's just this emotional burden. We give. And it's kind of a two-sided coin, because part of having a class that's filled with joyful kids, no matter how hard it is, they give so much back, right? I think of a time in my life around 2012, I was going through some really challenging personal times. And I didn't actually get to deal with those things because I was in the class. But on the other hand, I was so glad I was in the class because it got me through the day where I didn't have to dwell on it. So it's just finding that balance where you do get so much from the kids, but it's emotionally exhausting, and then you come home and you realize, I haven't really done anything for myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the key to self-compassion, is that, the practice of self-compassion is the permission. Compassion by definition is I notice suffering and I have an actionable or a desire to alleviate it. And so, there's a recognizing and then a doing piece when struggle occurs. So when you're going through something that's hard, there's this underlying level of like, it's hard and I'm still okay. Like, I have that, joy and grief can exist in the same container. And I think we forget this a lot as educators. We think that if it's bad, it's only bad. Or I'm going to compartmentalize these and I'm only going to see the joy now and then I'm going to see the bad later. But this is not how we work as humans. It all exists at the same time. And sometimes, you're right. And
it's messy and complicated. Right?
It's messy and complicated. This is who we are as humans.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to sort of turn down the messy to be present with our students because we don't want to show up as messy humans all the time because that's not safe for them. But then we also need to be able to allow the joy in because kids do bring us a lot of joy. If you're going into this because you love kids, then you also get to see the messiness that they bring. And that's so fun, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we hold it all, right, in that container.
We do.
So do you think that inner critic that we all have prevents us from really being able to savor those joyful moments in the classroom?
That's such a good question. As educators especially, and I've noticed this the more I've worked with educators. I have the privilege now in my work. I've stepped out of the classroom in the last couple of years, and I get to teach this work globally. So I work for the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, which I get to teach self-compassion around the world. And when I get to work with educators specifically, I really see how many of us tend to hear our inner critic a little louder. Like we tend to do that. And I think it's because
raging in there sometimes.
Right? It is. For many of us, it's raging in there. Yeah. But we're also in a profession where we're trained to look for things that are going wrong so we can improve them. We're trained to look for things that are different. And we've come often, for many of us, from a generation where criticism was the foundation.
Yes.
And we believe that criticism is the foundation for motivation. Where in fact, the more we see the research come out of self-compassion, we see that kindness is a much stronger foundation than criticism. It's just so much stronger. And I often remind people this, like you asked me who is my favorite teacher, and my answer is my dad because he was so kind. I had other teachers who helped me a lot, but some of them were really critical, and that didn't actually, it's not who I remember, right? So how do we learn about this? One of the biggest pieces of our inner critic is actually first to just become mindful of it, to start being aware of it. I often tell this story of, when I first started practicing self-compassion, my daughter, her name is Gracie, she's 14 now, but when she was 6 or 7, she was, I remember putting her to bed one night, I think she was in kindergarten or grade 1, she was having a tough day as little ones do, right? And she was talking about how, things were hard and, friends didn't like. I don't remember the whole scenario. I just remember her poor little sad body having a hard day. And I sat beside her and I held her and I gave her a hug. And you can even hear my tone. My voice was caring and loving and she softened and she went to bed and I was filled with joy because compassion is a loving response. It's a loving part of our brain.
Yeah.
And it was easy. And I left her and she fell asleep and I walked into my office and I opened the slides for a presentation the next day. I was like, oh, who do I think I am? This is totally crap. Like, I can't believe anyone's going to listen to me. And my inner critic was raging.
Yes.
Like raging within moments of listening to my compassionate voice. And I often share this story because it was, I think, at that moment where I went like, whoa, listen, I can hear it. And for most of us, we're just not paying attention to how much we criticize ourselves. So it was in that moment where I sort of said to myself, would I say what I'm saying out loud to my daughter? Would I say what I'm saying out loud to any other human in the world? Would I say this out loud to my students, to my partner, to my friends? And I mean, just looking at your faces, both of you, no, of course, right? We would never say the things that we say to ourselves. And so what I did is I made a conscious, intentional effort to, when that inner critic gets loud, I just kind of go like, girl, really? This voice now?
Yeah, right? What?
Do we want to listen to this? Is this helping me? Is it serving me? And my goal in life is to continue to turn down the dial of my inner critic and turn up my compassionate voice, because that exists too. We all also have it. And as much as we often hear inner critics as educators, we're also very, very gifted to have compassionate voices, because this is the voice you bring to your classroom. This is the voice you bring to your students. And we just need to remember that that voice is also the one we can meet ourselves with. And it's much more motivating, much more supportive, and much more enticing in supporting our lives. And so it's a real conscious effort and intention in changing that.
And you talk about those connections we make with our students as being the single most important thing we can do in the book. And I really think it is part of your own self-care, is making those connections first. Because as you also say, you could have the most amazing teacher, and we've had these great teachers, but they didn't make connections with their students. And those students, they're not going to learn in that situation. Doesn't matter how they might be bang on, the curriculum might be so amazing, but they need to walk in that door and feel it's a place where that teacher cares about them and they've made connections. And Roy and I, hopefully, we think we've done that in our career. And we know that that's, to me, the foundation you start with. But it also gives so much back to your self-care when you create that kind of environment, right?
It's when you're in the classroom and you're laying that foundation of respect and laying that foundation of I feel I understand you. And then when the classroom is humming along and there's this sense, oftentimes I've had other educators come in my classroom and actually say, it feels really good in here. Like there's an energy in the classroom that resonates with people when they go in, that there's a feeling of calm, or there's a feeling of almost a feeling of joy. And I know that Martin and I, it's why we're so connected. It's something that we worked really hard to build.
Well, your students are lucky that you've done that over the years. And I think, one of the key pieces I've always believed in, it's who I've showed up as an educator, is that relationships are the foundation of connection. And one of the hardest parts for us as educators is when we are not well, it's really hard to build relationships. When we are not present, it's really hard to be able to create that space, or it comes at a cost of our energy at some point. And so, and as you both said, it is that relationship that actually helps us over the long. I'm the same. I could not run a classroom if I didn't know my students.
No.
To me, I want them to belong in the space that they're coming into. I want them to learn that they're valuable in the space that they're coming into, and I want them to know that I see them. That they are humans, and they're not just little adults. They're people who are progressing and learning and understanding. And my job is to do that. Right? Is to do that with them. And so. And I think also relationship is again that foundation of creating a well space for everybody, and then it becomes modeled as educators. Like when we can do that, we can also then model that for our students.
Now teachers who often are overwhelmed and they're stretched thin, do you find there's certain misconceptions they have about self-care? That when they hear the words, they just they go, well, that's not for me, or I can't do that.
Take some time off and come back.
Right. Totally. Well, I mean, I always say self-care is things we do off the job, right? This is not something we do on the job. And self-care it becomes also one more thing that people have to do. And when you just said, like, they're overwhelmed, they have no space, it becomes like, how do I have time? Or I know this, but I can't do it. So levels of guilt and shame often show up with self-care because it's touted as the answer to burnout. But you can't self-care yourself out of a difficult moment in the class. Like I always talk about, little Johnny throws a chair across the classroom and you're like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. You can't be like, I'm going to go self-care my way out of this. I'll see, I'm going to go get a massage right now. And
so true.
This is not how we show up. And so we continue to hold it. I often talk about the difference between self-care and self-compassion. Self-compassion, as I said, is the ability to meet oneself when it's hard with care, or how to meet ourselves the way we would treat a friend. And this is not something we have to do more of. It's really an intentional kindness that we just act. So again, when little Johnny throws a chair across the room, we might just be like, whew, this is super hard right now. I'm just going to take a deep breath, because I know I'm not alone. Other people would be freaking out too, but I need to be present here. And what am I going to do to just sort of give myself a moment and then stay here, and then I'll debrief this later. That's compassion. That's meeting ourselves just in a moment with a little bit of steadiness. And then we do self-care later. Self-care becomes, often, behavioral self-compassion, it's the act of showing up, doing, that's self-care. I go to the gym at 6 a.m. because I know it's good for my body. You asked me if I'm an early bird, I would never have told you that, but I've learned that if I show up and I work out, I'm going to be a better human for the rest of the day. Feel better for it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The quintessential question of self-compassion is, what do I need? Or what do I need right now? So generally, we can answer that question at any moment. Sometimes it's, I just need a deep breath and I need to continue on with where I am. And sometimes it's, I need to actually care for myself in a way that's going to support. So maybe I do need to take a day or two off. I need to step back. Or maybe I need to go for a walk in the trees because that's how I calm my nervous system, right? One of the things we don't ask ourselves as educators is that question ever. We say, what do you need? How can I help? Where am I showing up? And we've forgotten that really powerful question. What do I need in this moment so I'm okay, so I can show up for the next best moment?
Mm-hmm. And I think going through that on your own, then you can end up teaching it. But if you haven't experienced that, then how do you teach it? Sort of a walking I love walking meditation. I've read some Joe Dispenza about walking meditation. Yeah. There are Buddhist monks in the United States right now doing a walking meditation for healing. For peace. Those kinds of things are really important. Forest bathing, walking in the forest by yourself or walking with someone else. Those are all those things about that self-compassion. Totally. Then you collect your resources. Right? Yeah. You collect your resources and then you can share those resources with others.
And I think the important thing there too, Roy, is I love a 40-minute, 45-minute walk in the trees. I can't do that in the middle of my busy day.
Yes, no.
I can collect myself as I walk to the photocopier machine. I can take 3 deep breaths and I can still access that. Yep. And so one of the most powerful practices of self-compassion is just the intention to access it when it's full. And one of the hardest parts about it is not that it's hard. It's hard to remember to do it. And we don't have that neural pathway set up for most of us. This is why it's a practice. So as you said, it would be fantastic to do a walk for peace and spend, months walking across and changing how we are. I don't have that capacity in my life right now. But I can do a walk from peace from my office to the bathroom. And I can take a deep breath, I can collect some water, and I can do a walk for peace back to my classroom. And I've just given myself a minute of just deep breaths and slowing down so that I can meet the next best hard thing. And I think this is where self-compassion becomes an intentional mindset of how am I caring for myself in this moment, as opposed to, self-caring or self out of hard. We can't change. One of the other things I often say is I have been looking for the magic wand to make everything easier for the last, 15 years, especially since I've become a parent, and it is not there.
No.
It is still hard. It doesn't matter if I'm in the classroom, if I'm with my parent, or if I'm with my own parents, or if I'm acting as a parent, if I'm on stage in front of people. Life still shows up and it's still messy. Yeah. And we can't self-care our way out of the messiness. What we can do is we can allow ourselves to be with the things that are hard and to not get so carried away with them and to be like, this is hard right now, but it's not going to be hard forever. And I can do the next best thing.
Okay. Yeah. I really like in the book when you do say to find things for mindfulness that just are part of your day, like brushing your teeth, for example. Yeah. And I worked out the math for you. Let's say you did that for 60 years. You brushed your teeth and were mindful of that whole time. It actually comes to an extra 60 days of mindfulness.
Right. Were you a math teacher, Martin? Is this?
No, I just love math. But I saw that in there. I go, what would that be for a lifetime? So 60, so these little things, buy the photocopier, these little moments, those are the time to maybe not go on a long walk because you can't fit that in, but you could fit it in at other times. Yeah.
Research actually says right now 12 minutes is the magic everyone could do a day. So if you can find 12 minutes in your day, the Dalai Lama once said, if you can't find a minute to meditate, you should probably find 30, right? Like this is how it, and I think what changed for me when I first started meditating, I was like, I am a mover and a shaker. Mindfulness scared me, to be really honest. Sitting on a cushion and being still. And I tried it. And within 30 seconds, I was like, how do I do this? It didn't happen instantly. Right. I can go sit in a 5-day silent retreat now. I've built that muscle of attention.
Built that capacity.
built that capacity. So it happens because we take those intentional short moments it's really neural pathway work. We're really retraining our brain to then know that it's okay to slow down. And I think one of the most important things for educators, we tend to work in a fast pace, go quickly, by the bell, don't stop, don't take breaks, do more. There's this expectation of intensity. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the greatest things we could give ourselves as gifts is to slow down. And even if that's a micro moment of a breath every day, it's an act of resistance of like, I don't have to get caught up in all of the mess, the overwhelm that this system provides me. Yeah. I have not found the answer to the system that continues to overwhelm us. And there is a systemic problem. But what I do is when I show up and be like, yeah, well, damn you, system, I'm going to take a breath for me right now. Yeah. It's like a powerful, like, I'm okay, even though this is hard.
Yeah. And that's so important because you can't change the system instantly, right? That's going to take systemic change, all of us collectively. But you can change how your day goes, right? You have control over some of that anyway.
Massively. And we are the system. And this is what people forget.
We are the system.
So if we collectively all change, the system will start to move around us. And this is the piece that we're not doing enough of. And so that's why I believe self-compassion can be one of those foundational, life-changing moments that can start to create the changes in our system.
In your book, you shared a personal experience about teaching and having a difficult parent and then going to the staff room. And I want to bring that up because the thing about the staff room as a social place, as a place for teachers to meet, I think many schools have lost that.
You don't see them in there anymore.
You don't see teachers.
No.
I work as a TTOC, a substitute teacher. Even though I'm retired, I love that experience. I love going into the classroom. But there have been times when I've taken my lunch and gone to a staff room and no one's there. And that's different from my experience, from the lens that I have of the staff room when I started my career. How is that staff room and that connection with staff members, how is that important to our well-being?
And I just want to honor, I've worked in staffs where I've taken my lunch and gone to my own room or my own office because it just there's not a connection. And I had the privilege in my last staff to have a culture that was created around connection. Like this was the foundation of what people worked really hard at. We worked really hard to create that connection because we knew how much it was necessary. And I think it's lost because we tend to isolate ourselves because isolating is easier for many of us when things get hard because we don't want to collectively share because there's a vulnerability that comes with I'm not okay, or this is a hard moment. I think when you said that I distinctly remember this parent shaming me, like just that feeling of like I was trying to do my best and they just made me feel like a terrible moment as an educator. And we all have those. And I think we don't talk about them enough, right? Yeah. And I was so lucky to go into my staff room that day to talk to an educator who kind of gruff, didn't talk to him very often. And I sort of shared what happened. He just looked at me and said, you are not the first person that this family has done this to. And you do not have to trust what they say and you're going to be okay. And I just remember my shoulders dropping and probably got a little teary, but it was like, oh, thank you for reminding me that this is not all on me. And for many of us, this culture has not been built as a system in our schools. I talk about culture being one of the 7 C's in my book as it being a foundational place, but it takes all those other things, the courage, the curiosity, the care. We kind of have to have those other things to build or enough people who've done that work that you create a culture that feels safe, that you can have a space of vulnerability, and then that reminder of that common humanity, that we're not alone, that we're in this together. Yeah. And my goodness, that becomes a powerful stuff. It was probably my favorite stuff I ever worked on because of that community that was built.
It's so important to make those connections with other staff members because the thing about teaching, even though you're surrounded by 25, 30 students, it's a very lonely job, right?
Very lonely.
It really is. And unless you have an EA, then there's other people that you can connect with. But if you don't, it's so hard. And so you need to go to another adult in the building and share moments like that just to help you through it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think again, we work in silos. And especially when you get into different, subjects too, then you're like in high schools where you're working with, I don't talk to the science teachers, I'm in English. There's just so much differences. And we often highlight our differences rather than looking at how we all are connected. And, it really does take a courageous couple of people who say, we need to create this culture together, and we need to have spaces and or leaders or school leaders or teacher leaders in schools that say, come on, it's okay for things to be hard. It's okay that we talk about it. I worked in a school once. We just created soup club. So at least once a week at lunch.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
It was my favorite thing.
Of that, right?
Totally, right? Little things like that.
Yeah, I shared an experience with Martin just recently. As a TTOC, I was in a school. I had my lunch, and I tried to organize the rest of my afternoon. I was sitting at my computer, and there was a knock on the door. And one of the teachers said, "Oh, today's soup day, and I don't know if you want to join us, but you're more than welcome to come and have a bowl of soup and then come back." But that offering was made to me, and I went into the staff room, and it was bustling with activity. And I walked into that room. I could feel the energy. I felt the energy very welcoming. I felt the soup was very welcoming, and just the soup, the feeling and all that. Yeah, that was a moment of mindfulness. That was a moment of a sensory experience. The sounds, the smell of the soup, and the feeling, all of those things. And I had my own lunch, but that bowl of soup was nourishing more than just the food. It was nourishing for my soul for that day. Yeah. And it was very easy. It could have been very easily the person just walked by the hall and walked away and didn't invite me. So that I felt
invited. I love
invited.
that, because I think this is also a reminder for all of us of, because it's hard, we tend to go insular. We tend to go, and sometimes we need to pick our heads up. And, as much as I say we need to ask ourselves, what do I need? But sometimes we need to ask each other, what do you need?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And not be afraid to lean on each other. Roy, what you just talked about is a feeling of belonging. Even in a school where you don't teach at all on a regular basis, you can walk into a staff room as a TTOC, as an outsider, and be nourished by a bowl of soup in a community that's saying, here, you belong here, come on in. And my guess is you were a different human for the rest of that afternoon. And when you showed up with kids, all of a sudden you were more present, you were feeling more connected, you felt like you belonged, and it was easier to get through your day, even when things went sideways.
Yeah. Yes. A few years ago, I did a workshop when I was in the MBTA office with Wade Repta. He wrote The Well Teacher, and his line was always, our amygdala kicks in, and we always jump to like 10 is, because we're in Africa. Being chased by a lion.
Chasing lions, yep.
But so often we jump to that level. So how do we get teachers to realize you're not being chased by a lion? Because I find a lot of us jump to that right away.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
It was my favorite line with kids when they used to come into my counseling office afraid to write a math test. And I was like, your brain doesn't know the difference between this math test and a bear chasing you.
Yes.
Right? Like this is the automatic response of stress. And we have created an ongoing stress response in our brain. So we actually don't take our stress response down into de-stress enough. No. Right? Like we stay in our brains are supposed to do this. They're supposed to have a stress response. We're supposed to come out of it. And this is a normal response. And our society today is stress. So we stay here all the time. So every time something comes up that's hard, our brain just naturally and automatically goes to that stress response, including criticizing ourselves. So believe it or not, the minute we criticize ourselves, when that practice comes up as we doesn't know the difference between you criticizing yourself or someone else or a lion chasing you, you stay in stress response.
Right, you do.
Truly.
Yeah.
Right.
So then, the answer is mindfulness, to be honest. Like that's the answer is paying attention and just giving yourself, and it doesn't have to be, this coming out of it doesn't have to be take half an hour. It can be 30 seconds, hand on your heart, catch your breath, being like, I'm okay. This is not a lion chasing me. It is just a teenager who's being miserable in front of me, right? Or a 5-year-old in tears. And those moments are hard, but I am capable of dealing with this.
Yeah.
So could you continue on that line? How does a teacher teach the self-compassion in a classroom?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say is don't model it. Like the most important thing is, unless you've gone through some explicit training on how to understand self-compassion for yourself, the most powerful way to bring it into the world is to model it. Because kids smell authenticity, right? They know. Yes. They know whether you're telling the truth.
The yes detector is very strong.
I used to laugh.
Right?
I would.
So true.
They're totally. I walked into teachers teaching mindfulness who would put a CD on and then go do their attendance while the kids did the meditation.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing that is they're never going to understand that unless you are authentic in your own practice.
Yes.
So if we really want to teach kids what self-compassion looks like, I have 2 teenagers. I don't explicitly teach mindfulness or self-compassion to them ever. They joke. They're like, Mom's meditating again. I was like, you've never seen me do that. That's not how I meditate. But the language that they come out of themselves when they're stressful, I notice how they know how to regulate their bodies. I notice they're being kind to themselves because they have heard me model that over and over and over again when things get hard for me in a classroom, in a space as a parent, I'm collecting, I'm staying regulated in my own body. I'm knowing what it's going to take to make sure that I'm okay. And then the best thing to do is say it out loud to kids, right? Like, oh, wow, this is a moment that's really difficult right now. I'm noticing all of us are feeling a little bit stressed. This is kind of a human response. We get this way when the noise gets loud in here or somebody's having a difficult time. You're not really alone. This is what it means to be humans who struggle. Like failure is part of life. I wonder what we need right now to make ourselves okay. I wonder what it looked like. I know right now I need just a big deep breath. I'm going to stand here for just a moment, catch my breath, and just remind myself that I can do this next hard thing and remind myself that I'm cared for and remind you all that you're cared for too. And then we're going to get on with it because we can, right? So am I explicitly saying, here are the components of mindful self-compassion? No, I'm not going to do that in a classroom.
Well, but I've seen that happen, but then it's just artificial.
Yes.
You do your mindfulness lesson, here it is, and then you go back to the next lesson and everyone's stressed out and not being mindful. Totally. It's got to be the way you practice, right? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, again, in your book, you talk about the quick 6. Right. So when a student, I say, "Oh, I've done that many times with a student." So they're like, "Oh, Mr. Hunt, I'm not feeling." Did you have a drink of water? Right? And you're like, okay, just take a breath or breathe. Or when you see everybody needs it, you say, "Let's go outside."
Totally.
Right? But that quick 6, I'm going, wow. It's the things that I always felt that I did naturally and written down. And it's just like you pulled them from my brain, but it needs to be mentioned more. And the last part, gratitude, right? It's so important. We talk about gratitude. I've always talked about gratitude, about stillness. So anyways.
Well, and I think the difference, Roy, there is just the explicit intention, right? This is what I often remind people. What I'm bringing, self-compassion, this concept of self-compassion, it's not like mind-blowing, but it is life-changing if we remember to do it.
Yes.
And the reminder is that many of you all have the skills already. You know what you're doing. You're just not doing it on purpose to alleviate those moments that are difficult. So the difference between just showing up and living life and being like, I recognize that this moment's hard and I'm going to meet it with care as opposed to ongoing stress, right? Something bad can happen. We can keep in our stress response, or we can be like, what is it that I need right now? A drink of water is a great example, right? I always say, teachers, this is the best thing you can do. If you make sure you drink a bottle of water every day, you know what's going to happen? You are guaranteed to have a bathroom break. So that means you get 2 minutes also to take yourself away. Beautiful. It's like the most powerful practice. So it's not that we need to do more. We just need to do it with intention. And I think this is the permission giving we give to ourselves. As educators, we feel like it's selfish, that we're not entitled to that permission. And I think this is the script we need to flip. We need to give ourselves that reminder that we are worthy of care. Yeah. It doesn't have to be 8 hours of meditation. It needs to be 30 seconds of slowing down. That we are worthy and supported of the care that we give to others is entitled to come back to ourselves. And in fact, if we don't do that, if we don't include ourselves in the circle of compassion, that's where we're going to continue to see more burnout and exhaustion. It's mandatory that we're supporting ourselves as a practice of supporting others.
One of the many things I like in your book is that you tell people to learn and recognize those signs in themselves. And you talk about yourself being in a meeting, being overwhelmed, and just saying, I can't sit here any longer. And you went for a hike up a mountain and found these heart-shaped stones, right? Yes. So it's that ability to really just slow down and look at ourselves. We're always go, go, go. But the signs are there. The signs are there.
Always.
And if you recognize them, because if you don't recognize them, you'll eventually get them. I think you even quote Dumbledore in the book, right?
Yes.
Right? If you don't deal with the pain now, it's going to be far worse, right?
Yes.
Dumbledore says that to Harry, I think.
Worse.
Yes. And it's true, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It is true. This is why, so someone once asked Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese monk, like, how much suffering do you need to live in to be able to like meet it? And he just simply said, not much. The minute things are hard, you meet it with care, right? The minute you notice it. And what happens for most of us is we're not paying attention, so that bit of hard that comes becomes more hard and becomes more stressful. And all of a sudden we're in the deep end of the pool and we feel like we're drowning and we have nothing around us. And I think this is the system of our education, that most of us feel like we're in the deep end drowning. And with just a little bit of mindful self-compassion, it doesn't take us out of the deep pool necessarily. What it does is it puts a life preserver on us and just says, I can sit in this hard because I've continued to meet. Every time that splash of water comes, I go, all right, this is okay. I've got this. I'm capable of doing this. And if I'm not capable right now, I am going to take myself and really support myself. And this is part of a system piece of where we need to recognize, we can't all just take days off all the time, or our system's not going to function either, right? Yeah. So, I'm in the middle of a meeting. I actually knew that there was space for me to walk away at that point with, some conversations with people, and then the signs came up. But I'm not encouraging people to walk out of a staff meeting and be like, I'm done, right? Like, this is it.
I have to meditate.
Lisa Baylis said.
You're right. She said I get to. What I'm saying is I want to give people permission. Like, when you say, I need this right now, we support each other. Like, this is the compassionate care that I'm giving myself. This is compassionate systems. This is the leadership that we offer. Right now, I know what I need, and I'm coming back tomorrow because I've taken care of myself, right? Like, it's not excuse making. It's not indulgent. It's not saying I can't do anything.
No, it's not at all.
A true self-compassion practice is actually very motivating. It's very supporting, and it actually has the fierce power to continue to do the things that are hard.
So how would you support, or what advice would you give to our new teachers who are starting to feel stressed already in the beginning of their career?
And they're beginning, I think, in a more challenging system, right? So there's,
totally.
Some of us started to see that later on, but their entire career is now going to be in this. I think that's an excellent question,
Here's my reminder to all of us, especially new teachers. It's hard. It's just hard. It's hard when it's new. It's hard. Ask a new vice principal. It's hard. Ask someone who started a new job. It's hard. So one of the things that I often remind people is it shouldn't be easy, and you can still be okay. And so I think what happens is, because we're in a now system that access to easy and comfort is where we're naturally driven to, the minute it gets hard, we think we're incapable. It was hard for me my first 5 years as an educator. I was working really, really, and the system was hard at that point in different ways, right? And so I want to take out of that, like, it's allowed to be hard. I think we need to stop making it easy for people. My kids are often say to me, Mom, why do I have to do this? I'm like, because you have to do hard things, right?
It's just hard in life.
Some things are just hard in life. So we don't have a magic wand to make things not hard.
100 years ago, we didn't have hot showers. I mean, right? Life is it's easier than it's ever been in many ways.
There wasn't a barista to make my coffee for me. I had to do it myself, right? So I think that one of the things that I would remind new teachers are lean on each other. Make sure you have a mentor, check in with other people, give yourself permission for breaks, and don't get caught up in the fact that it's hard. It is hard. It is hard, and it won't always be hard. But I'll tell you, even 20 years of my career, there are moments when I show up in the classroom and I'm like, oh gosh, this is still hard, right? So, like, we can't sugarcoat this, and I think we need to build. This is the building of the resiliency. It's like, if you don't love it, that's different. But look for the good. Find the moments that are fun. Like you said early in this interview, like, you love it because you get those connections with kids. Lean in that, and know that you can celebrate those. And it can be hard. Grief and gratitude can sit in the same place, right? Stress and joy can exist at the same time. You can be overwhelmed and overjoyed. And they're allowed to be in the container of who we are as humans. And what happens is we think that they're like other ways, like we can only have one or the other. But truly, the best thing new teachers can do, any human can do, is learn that it can exist at the same time if you hold yourself in a container of care. Yeah. So that all of this is going to happen, right? We're going to struggle. I mean, it's one of the hard things that come in is like, you're going to suffer. We're going to go through hard things. This is what it means to be a human. Mm-hmm. When you're a new teacher, you're still navigating what classroom management looks like and how to balance your time if it even exists. And who is this kid swearing at me? Did this actually, like, we don't expect these things, and then they happen. And then only way we learn is we go through things. Yeah. And we need to give ourselves permission to go through things and learn and be okay in it. And you will be. They'll be fine. You just have to trust yourself.
That's why I think this book is so brilliant, because I do think you say things as they should be said, not just, you don't coddle people, right? Mm-hmm. You don't hold them by the hand. You're realistic about what it is. And I think we do too much of that sometimes as parents, as teachers, the coddling, right? It doesn't mean you can't make people be self-aware and have self-care, but you also have to be realistic. And I think we've lost that realism, right? Yeah.
Well, I often talk about self-compassion comes in two forms. There's a tender form and there's a fierce form, right? The tender is sort of this inward part of us that goes, okay, darling, what do I need right now? I often imagine myself wrapped in a comforter, just kind of going like, okay, this is really hard right now, and I'm going to really care for my inner world. But if I stay in my inner tender side, nothing gets done. I got to show up, right? Life happens. And then when I think of fierce, I put my Superwoman arms on, right? Like I want to sit up and be like, there's action. We show up, we provide, we motivate ourselves. They both exist. In fact, they exist together. They complement each other. So, we don't want to coddle. Like, we have to try. Like, the world is messy. This is the common humanity component of self-compassion. Is like, we can guarantee that you are imperfect, you are messy, and things will go wrong. And if you think you're different from that, then I'm sorry, you're going to have a really hard time in life. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah.
And you're also resilient and full of joy and full of love. And, I might tell it like it is, but I also like to think I'm one of the kindest, most caring humans you'll meet. And I'm going to love you up because I know that also this is what it means. And this is what we need in our life, right? Yeah. So I can love you up and also say, get your shit done, right? Like,
absolutely.
Let's go.
Right? Yes. That is the key.
So where does play fit into this? Because you had that, you talked about it in the book. Where does play fit into this, to the sense of well-being, to the sense of self-compassion, play individually or play in a group, especially with your students?
Well, remember, self-compassion only exists when suffering exists or stress exists, right? So we practice self-compassion when things are hard. I don't know about you when I'm playing. I'm not practicing self-compassion. I'm full of joy, right? What do you do for play, Roy? Like what do you do for that?
Well, I love skiing, cross-country skiing. Yeah. I like to get to the gym. When I'm in a school and I'm doing gym with students, I'm one of the kids in there. I play with them. Yeah. And the interesting thing is when I'm chasing them around, I like to play this game, especially with the grade 4-5 group called Band-Aid Tag, where you chase someone and then they lose an arm and then lose the other arm and then they run around like this. But they are so surprised when they see me chasing students, right? I'm not observing. I have my whistle on because I can stop
it at any point
when I need to. But the fact that a teacher is chasing them, there's a sense of joy that comes from the student, and the fact that they see me. I've just gone from from my position as a teacher as someone who loves to have fun, right? And so there's and that, I think, it becomes a different social emotional connection.
Totally. Well, that's exactly what we were talking about. Like, how do you model joy? You be joyful. How do you model self-compassion? You be self-compassionate. How do you model play? Or how do you get kids to play? You model play, right? Like, play is an essential part, and we take ourselves far too seriously. And so, one of the most important things is to just allow ourselves to find what makes us silly, find us what brings joy. Like I told you, my play when my kids were little were these kitchen dance parties, right? Like we would come home after dinner and my kids would be lying on the floor having meltdowns, and I would put some silly song on, and you can have a meltdown, but I'm gonna dance right now because that's what's gonna help me get sort of out of this funk that we're all in, right? And I think that play becomes a piece that we invite in. It's again intentional, and it brings joy. And so when self-compassion arrives with suffering, but we don't always suffer. And we have to remember that too, because we sometimes want to sit in our suffering. We want to just wade into that deep end of the pool and be like, this is so hard. Life also is beautiful and full of joy. And we also have to know what brings us joy, Martin, what do you do for play?
Like Roy, I always played with my kids, my class.
Yeah.
I always did. Roy called it the hunt. I call it Mr. Stubble hunt, where the kids they'd be chasing me through the forest and field, and we'd be playing these games. But I often made class movies as well, where I would act with them and direct them, and just I think in 35 years of teaching, I can't think there was one day where we didn't have one moment of good, heartfelt laughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And outside the class, I love to garden. To me, that brings me such joy. That's my zen, my moment, my calm, my mindfulness happens throughout that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what would you tell teachers who are saying, I don't have laughter in my classroom? I don't know how to do that. What would you tell them?
Get to know your kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how, I really don't know what they've done to really get to know their kids then.
Yeah.
And I know
totally.
Many classrooms are filled with many challenging situations.
Totally.
But you can find that joy.
You can find that
right?
moment.
Right.
Totally.
Whether it's a story you read that makes them laugh. It doesn't have to be complicated, right?
Yeah.
It's a game you play with them.
Yeah.
It's there. That joy is there.
Or
right?
something that's spontaneous. I can remember standing at the front of the class and a student coming up to me and looked up and said, "Mom." Right?
I remember being
said,
that student.
What? And the entire class laughed about it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that moment, because it was laughter, but I wanted to make sure that student didn't feel bad. Mm-hmm. And I said, I consider that to be the ultimate compliment.
Totally.
And which they all laughed. And then they started calling me Mom.
Mom, of course they did.
But it was laughter from that.
I remember this one moment where we were going to write about, I had the smartboard up. We were going to writing good paragraphs. And I had incorrectly what it said pergraphs. I'd left out the A or something. So good chuckle, laugh. And I said, you know what? We're going to write pergraphs today.
Yes.
Right? So we wrote everything a paragraph should not. We wrote the opposite of paragraphs. And we made up this word on the spot. Yeah. So you have to find those moments, I think, just to go with the moment. Yeah. Right? Forget
so
the day plan for that moment. Just go with it.
Totally. And not take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
Right? I think sometimes, and it comes back to that new teacher question of we want to get it right, but we're allowed to give ourselves permission to be imperfect. And when we do that, we model that for our kids, that they're also allowed to get it wrong, and we can have a laugh about it. And I think this is a really powerful practice in perfectionist thinking, right? I often say I'm a recovering perfectionist. It was really easy when I was a young teacher to want to get things right all the time because we think our kids are are trying to, make sure we're perfect, and it doesn't exist.
It does not exist.
And it was too hard to live up to. And so when we give ourselves permission to be imperfect and messy, we have a lot more fun.
And maybe you've just answered this last question or second last question we'll get to. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate you doing this. But if teachers could take one thing away from your book, maybe it's joy, maybe it's finding time to play, but would it be something else that you think they should take away from your book?
I just want them to remember they have permission to slow down and care for themselves. Usually that's the sort of the number one thing. Yes, play, have gratitude, joy. All that comes when you actually sort of step out of the stress response all the time. You slow yourself down enough to actually recognize you're going to be okay. So, the number one message I say, rest is resistance, right? Slow down, show that you get that permission to actually take a breath, and you will see how that creates multitudes of care for yourself.
Finally, what gives you hope right now about the future of educators and well-being in schools?
Yeah.
Well, my own teenagers, I have to just say. I mean, I watched them, and I started this work when my son Benji was just about to go into kindergarten. So he started in 2015. I'm sitting in my kids' school right now. They're in grades 9 and 10. I came in because I'm coaching their track team in a few weeks, and I just happened to be here. So although I don't work in schools directly, I indirectly am always around kids, and I get to do the work that I still love. I coach all their sports. I get to be involved in their schools. I get a lot of hope from today's kids. They're fantastic, and I love that our education system is now prioritizing adult well-being, that this is now something that we are focused on, that we are talking about, and we are prioritizing. And it has to continue until we all know that this is a priority for ourselves.
I love the way you bring up teenagers today, because I think so often we're so critical of teenagers today. I think they're more amazing than ever.
They're fantastic.
I mean, I am hopeful for the future because they're the leaders of tomorrow, and I see them just aware, they're diverse, they're accepting, they're including, right?
Yeah.
And we got things to work on with social media and other things going on, but we can work on that, right? But the core values they have, wow, I see a confidence in them
they are
that
strong.
my generation did not have. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's because we have educators who are starting to model it too. Right?
Yeah.
And so it comes back to, I am hopeful that we all continue to model this showing care for ourselves and caring for each other. We continue to create spaces of belonging, and we continue to remember that love and kindness are actually a foundational value of humanity. And this is how we need to keep showing up in the world.
Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
This has been an absolute delight talking to you and getting to meet
welcome.
you. Yeah. We wish you all the best, and we'd love to have you on again sometime in the future.
You let me know. I'm always happy to come back. And I hope you both come say hi on Friday when I'm in North Van and spending some time with you all.
Take care. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
you're welcome. Okay.
Another great guest here on After the Bell. I really enjoyed our conversation with Lisa Baylis.
Yes, it was great because in her book, she provides practical opportunities, I'd say practical opportunities for reflection.
Absolutely.
For a call to action. Mm-hmm. In the book, you can go through and try and journal and write. So all the things that I believe are important to develop that self-awareness, self-compassion, and to develop that resiliency that we want all teachers to have.
Which is what our podcast is about. And I really feel that Lisa gets to the heart of what it is to be a teacher. She understands it, and she doesn't just talk the talk. She walks the walk. And so often books nowadays are kind of superficial and touch on self-awareness and self-care. Mm-hmm. But they don't seem to show what the journey is about and how the writer has experienced things and wants to share that with people to make their life better. That's all it is. It's hard. Teaching is hard. It's one step at a time. Right. You never quite get there, right? But you can't give up on yourself.
Learning is hard, and that's one of the things. Is when a student says, "Well, this is hard," and said, "Yeah, it's supposed to be because you're doing it for the first time." Yeah. But as with all practice, the more you practice, the more you experience what it feels like to be in that mindful moment. Once you savor that, you can get back to that point, and then it gets easier.
And I guess I'm going to feel what it's like to have you as my accountability buddy.
You are my accountability buddy. Now, the difficulty with that is I'm a late night person. I'm a night owl, and you're an early to bed person. Yeah. So be prepared for me to check in on you around 1 o'clock in the morning.
And just check that I've done what I should do.
I won't call, but I will text.
Oh, boy. Okay. We're going to see if I still like the word accountability buddy. We'll share. We'll talk next week. But thanks, listeners. Okay. Have a great week. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy and fit. We'll talk to you next time on After the Bell.
Right. Bye-bye.
This podcast is organic, taking shape with each episode. Building resiliency for teachers everywhere.
That sounds great.
And our website is stuntbrothers.ca.
That's stuntbrothers.ca.
We will chat again.
After the bell.